Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. And Srimad Bhagavatam will be shared by Aniket Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Shravanta Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayansto Hyabradrani Vidunoti Suhyasatam Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhakti Naishtaki. Hare Krishna, devotees. Today I am reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 27, attacked by Chandravega on the city of King Puranjan, and the character of Kalakanya, verse 22 and verse 23. Verse 22. Mai sarabhya vipula madachapam sudusaham satur maharsi naikatra madhyan yachna vimukho mune. Mai, unto me, Sanrabhya, having become angry, Vipula, unlimited, Madat, out of illusion, Sapam, curse, Sudusaham, unbearable, Satum arhasi, you may remain, Na, never, Ekatra, in one place, Mat, my, Yachna, request, Vimukha, having refused, Mune, O great sage. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The great sage Narada continued, when I refused to accept her request, she became very angry at me and cursed me severely. Because I refused her request, she said that I would not be able to stay in one place for a long time. Purport. The great sage Narada Muni has a spiritual body. Therefore, old age, disease, birth, and death do not affect him. Narada is the most kind devotee of Supreme Lord, and his only business is to travel all over the universe and preach God consciousness. In other words, his business is to make everyone a Vaishnava. Under the circumstances, there is ordinarily no need for him to stay in one place for more than the time he requires to preach. Since by his own free will, he is already traveling all over the universe, the curse of Kal Kanya is described as fortunate. Like Narad Muni, many other devotees of the Lord are engaged in preaching the glories of the Lord in different places and in different universes. Such personalities are beyond the jurisdiction of material laws. Verse 23. Tato vihata sankalpa kanyaka yavaneshwaram mayopadishtamasada vavre namna bhayam patim. Tata, thereafter, Vihat Sankalpa, being disappointed in her determination, Kanyaka, the daughter of the time, Yamuna Ishwaram, unto the king of the untouchables, Maya Upadishtam, indicated by me, Asadya, having approached, Vavre, accepted, Namna, of the name, Bhayam, fear, Patim, as her husband. Translation. After she was thus disappointed by me, with my permission she approached the king of the Yavanas, whose name was Bhay, or fear, and she accepted him as her husband. Being the most perfect Vaishnava, Sri Narad Muni is always willing to do good to others, even to one who curses him. Although Kankanya, the daughter of the time, was refused by Narad Muni, she was given a shelter. Of course, no one could give her shelter, but a Vaishnava gives shelter somewhere to such an unfortunate girl. When Jara or old age attacks, everyone dwindles and deteriorates. In one shlok, Narad Muni gave shelter to Kalkanya, and counterattack the ordinary karmis. If one accepts the instruction of Narad Muni, the ocean of fear, bhaya, can be very quickly removed by the grace of that great Vaishnava. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschantya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advait Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. I would like to seek blessings from all the assembled Vaishnavas and thank you for giving me this opportunity to purify myself. Please forgive me for any shortcomings today. The commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, verse 22 and 23, especially by Srila Prabhupada, is very short commentary, but very, very focused. It shifts from the focus from King Puranjan's previous entanglement to the inevitable attack of the time and old age. These verses describe an interaction of the allegorical characters that symbolizes the soul's surrender to the material body and its consequences. And in these two verses and other verses in this chapter, there are so many of the learnings, though they seem very simple, but then if we contemplate, there are so many learnings out of it. One of the learning that these are the few learnings that I derived from it. That old age is unwanted, and in this commentary, it explains that Kalkanya, the old age, is universally unwanted. No one wants to get old. No one wants to, being, attacked by the Kalkanya, and it deteriorates as a matter of fact. But nobody likes it, and that's given. That's a universal truth here. It's a devotee's fortune, and when we look at the Narad Muni's refusal to accept Kalkanya as a wife, that signifies that pure devotee is never affected by the old age or disease or death. As not, and we look at the material body, but normally, if you are a pure devotee, you possess a spiritual body, Shuddha Sattva. Furthermore, the curse itself is considered a blessing. Somebody curses us, we can take that as a curse or we can take that as a blessing. Narad Muni take that as a blessing because he didn't want to stay in one place either. He wanted to, travel consistently. Iktras statum mana arhasi, to preach Krishna consciousness all over the universe. So that the curse simply becomes a blessing, and another thing that we can derive is a character of a devotee. Narad Muni's reaction is very illustrative. Even when cursed, he maintains equanimity and continues his mission. This shows the fearlessness. Uh, how fearless you can be. If you are cursed and you are still showing that you can travel the universe and continue to preach the name. That shows a real fearlessness and unwavering faith in Lord. And according to Gaudiya teaching, true Vaishnavas remain steady regardless of the praise or blame or gain, loss, anything. That is symbolized here by Sri Narad Muni. There is also symbolism of fear, the bhai, and when Kalkanya got disappointed and goes to the king Bhaya and accepts him as her husband, and that shows that uh, the material attachments are tend to continue having association with bhaya or fear in later life if we are not under the Krishna consciousness, if we are not protected by the Lord. Verse suggests that when one gives up the spiritual shelter, one tends to attach to fear, worry, instability. You can name any and many. Gaudiya interpreters might note that fear is one of the Maya's strong forces. Only divine shelter and surrender can subdue it. There is no other way. There is also a relationship to Kalkanya's role, and she's the daughter of time, the Jara, and she represents aging, fear, decay, death, and her interaction with Narad shows how time and fear attempts to seduce every soul away from the spiritual focus, and that we have been experiencing all our life. In refusing her request, then letting her approach fear, the narrative maps how soul's misalignment propagates further miseries. There's also mercy to the fallen. When we look at even when somebody acts against you and curses you, a pure devotee who's a full of compassion, Vanchakalpatarubhishya, is a full of compassion. Narad Muni grants her shelter rather than responding with anger. How many times we can do that? And this shows such a great character of Narad Muni here. And this aligns with the teaching of our Acharya saying, Udaram Gata, the surrendered souls show compassion even to those hostile to them. And then Narad Muni has a preaching mission, and this highlights the nature of Gaudiya Vaishnava mission, the constant and tireless movement to spread the spiritual knowledge, which is superior to stagnation of material life. And in the verse 22, when Narad Muni was cursed to not stay in one place, that actually becomes a blessing, and we have to think like that, and we have to get on the Chaitanya Prabhu's mission, of preaching mission or Sankirtan moment. So the fear arises, when we forget Krishna and the Kalkanya, when Kalkanya turned to Bhay, it shows how fear fills, the heart and that refuses the divine shelter, Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.37 explains that Bhayam Dvitiya Bhi Niveshes Chatah Sayar Ishad Apetasya Viparyayo Samruti. So fear arises when one turns away from the Lord and becomes absorbed in dualities. And fear, therefore, is not a natural to the soul, it is a symptom of forgetfulness, And to dissolve fear, we must not control it. We must remember Krishna. Remembrance replaces the fear with surrender. And that's the best thing that we can do. And I was thinking about why Kalkanya and not why Kalkumar. The Kalkanya, which Kal means time, and Kanya is the daughter, and it's a Kalkanya. Kal is the masculine. But its action, the decay, old age, deterioration, is feminine. Other often expressed as Jara or Kalkanya, and this femininity is a very symbolic. She doesn't attack the soul with a sword. She enchants first, then drains, and that's how the time works. Slowly, subtly, through attraction, attachment, and even exhaustion, it takes away the spiritual journey from us if we are not under the shelter of the Supreme Lord. And Srila Prabhupada in a 4.27.19 and 20 purport, he says, old age comes upon everyone. No one wants her, but she forcibly comes, and she's described as a woman because she first attracts the living being entity by illusion, and then brings the suffering. And that continues, and in that those two verses. Even Gaudiya Acharya see Kalkanya as a symbol of Maya Shakti. So that explained that. I looked at a lot of explanation, and this made most sense is that our Acharyas describe Kalkanya as a symbol of the Maya Shakti, the Lord's external energy, who serves the divine function, to test and purify the soul. It can test us and it can purify us, and it depends on us. And she's not evil. She's a Krishna's instrument. So when the soul turns away from Krishna, she embraces it, through the aging, decay, and illusion. But when soul turns towards Krishna, she lives, or her job is done. And that, if we get it, that's our enlightenment right there. Thus, the use of female figure is also theological. All energies are feminine to the Supreme Purush, the Krishna. Even time is active for the Shakti, a woman, right? So that's why it's a Kal Kanya and not Kal Kumar. Uh, and I was looking at the songs, and one of the songs that I listened to from Bhaktivinoda Thakur is Amar Jivana Sada Pape Rata. Such a beautiful song. And it translates to my life is always engaging in sinful acts. I have not a trace of piety. I cause anxiety to others and give distress to all beings. And that is us. And in Bhagavad Gita 16.23, Prabhupada says, Ya Shastra Vidhim Utsarja Vartate Kama Karatah na sa siddhim avapnoti na sukham na param gatim. So he who disregards spiritual injunction and acts whimsically cannot attain the perfection, happiness, or the supreme goal. Such a beautiful verse in Bhagavad Gita. And in a Gaudiya Vaishnava commentary, this verse is a philosophical core of Puranjan story, and these two verses is sort of highlighting how if we ignore Shastra, we become spiritual homelessness. Like Narad Muni, and from there we can become spiritual homelessness, like Narad Muni, and then from there we can we can continue and show that we are not feared by the fear, or the Kalkanya. And so how do I, right, I normally look at how can I apply it to my own life. Um, One of the things, I look at the spiritual principles and how I can apply it on me. So don't let the anger leads to harsh words or action. Uh, I do it. I do that mistake sometimes, despite my all efforts. But that can bind me emotionally or spiritually, and that is where I need to correct. And that is where we need to correct if we are making that mistake. See, every curse has a hidden grace. Even if something comes, if somebody gives a blessing, we are very happy. But if somebody curses us, there's such a hidden grace that we don't see because our mind is just occupied by that words of curse. So when situation seems limiting, ask, how can this expand my service? And that if we ask that question, and like Narad Muni, we can turn obstacles into the moment. And don't marry the fear, catch yourself when fear dominates your mind. And instead of feeding the anxiety, chant, read, basically we have to chant, read, and serve. And that just replaces fear with a faith, a very important thing for us. And accept as time as a divine, our use the aging, loss, and that our change to deepen gratitude and a detachment in a life. Time is a messenger, not an enemy. We think it's an enemy, but it is not. Respond to criticism with a compassion. When somebody criticizes us, we just show compassion. Narad Muni, gave us shelter to Kalkanya, like that. And guard our shelter. How do I do that? We have to ask daily. Who am I serving, Krishna or my fears? We have to redirect our services to Krishna through japa, association, and humility. Um, in a gist, as a summary of the thought, I thought, and I just concluded that for myself, saying, the same time that destroys everything is also the time that carries the devotee to eternity. And if because we have to look differently, if we look at time, which is a destroyer, yeah, it will do that. But if we think time is what will carry us to the eternity, then it will become that. When we reject the Supreme Lord, time unites us with the fear. But when we shall surrender to the Supreme Lord, time unites us with the freedom that we need. So let's pray to the Supreme Lord that may we learn like Narad Muni, unmoved by the curses, full of mercy, steady in devotion, refusing to accept fear as our husband. I'll conclude my summary here today. वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Excellent summary.
Nice, Prabhu.